guys, it's me. I actually was halfway through a video and I got a phone call, a positive phone call though, because it was from my aunt who has now been sober for like 2 years, so that was good. Let me just get comfortable. I'm in the other room because I've been attempting to do my writing and I didn't get very far, but at least I have made it somewhere. I didn't make a video last week because I had gastroenteritis. I've been really run down. There's no particular reason I can think of as to why, but I was too poorly last week. Like I was really poorly, and now I'm just kind of tired and I look like shit, I know, so I do apologise for that. But this week we've been looking at black and white thinking. I think specifically the focus has been on people and relationships, but of course black and white thinking isn't just about seeing the all good or the all bad in a person. We can do that with our work, we can do that with things we do day-to-day activities. We can feel fixated on something having to be a certain way. Prejudice can be seen as a form of black and white thinking, being unable to accept someone's sexuality, and not shifting really, and forgetting that whole area in between, because there is a huge area in between black and white. And also I think what's important to acknowledge is that although black and white are extremes, those extremes can be integrated and they can make a person a number of things. So just because somebody does one thing on that end of the scale and another on that doesn't mean they're either or. It's about looking through what's in the middle of all of that and looking through why in that case is there a polar opposite to another. So if you think about mental illness, if you think about bipolar, something I deal with, okay, you have mania and you have depression. Now, where that point hits depression, that depression can continue to drop for some people. And the same with mania, somebody can go up. I am somebody who, when I get to that point of the sort of manic side of things, it's an agitation. And so I kind of hover around here. I don't go woo all the way up. And yet with the depression, I drop all the way down. So if we're just going to see that in black and white, well, what's this big space in between Rachel, who can be chronically and catatomically depressed, to the Rachel who's highly agitated? I don't live in either of those states. I rapid cycle, so I go in between the both of them. But there's also this whole area in the middle of all the other places that I can be in terms of my well-being, my health. And hopefully, for the most part, I do sit in the middle and I'm not at an extreme. My behaviours aren't, well, I don't use behaviours, but the impulsivity isn't there and I sit more comfortably. And so what we tend to do with people is we can judge them based on one act, one impulse, one behaviour, and we cannot think about the other side to that. On the flip side is that we can not set a boundary with that behaviour and always say to ourselves, yes but, my aunt just phoned, okay, so I made so many excuses for her when she was drinking. It is unbelievable. I covered her ass all the time. And I always was like, yes, but, I shouldn't use her name. She's funny, she's this, she's that. When she's not drinking, she's this, this is what she's done for me, that's what she's done for me. And fine, those traits are there, they are what make her who she is, but ultimately her behaviour as an addict was inappropriate, unacceptable, and I didn't deserve to be on the receiving end of her behaviour, which I was. So what I've tried to do since we had a long time when we didn't talk is integrate her as a whole person. So she's now somebody who's sober. So she is the complete opposite of her being an addict in that regard. But what's all this bit in between? You know, she has to do those extremes. She's always said that if she's to give up a drink, that it has to be those extremes. So in my head, I can think, right, well, she's sober now and she's all of these amazing things. And then I can think, when she's an addict, she's all of these horrible things. I know for a fact that it's true. When she's sober, she's all of these amazing things. When she's been drinking, she's a fucking nightmare. And as helpful as it is to integrate somebody into, you know, make them a whole person, that she still has those traits, that she still has like those characteristics when she's drinking, they are being hidden. And she isn't a nice person, and isn't considerate, and isn't compassionate, and isn't a friend, and isn't there for other people, and is in fact incredibly selfish. That does not mean that who she is those things. What it means is that her behaviours are making her those things. That does not mean that because it's her behaviour that it's okay. She has to take responsibility for those behaviours, because ultimately she's the one who's carrying them out. So that's a way for something that's helped me with some of my black and white thinking in the past, or, you know, being all this or all that, is that, well, actually, no, she isn't this bad, awful person, but her behaviours make her that way. And so until she's willing to deal with those behaviours, I don't want to know her as she is now. I love her, I don't like her. So I'm not saying, well, I am saying you get sober, but also it's more, she needed to start that process, and I wasn't in a place to be there for her because it was too distressing and it was too difficult. So I've had to wait until she's been sober for a while to slowly start to trust her again. So I've worked hard on that, and there's a number of other people who've been in my life who I've had similar experiences with. And what's been the most helpful for me, and especially in terms of forgiveness and in terms of letting go, I've forgiven her for what she's done and I've let that go. I don't hold it against her. It is what it is, and it happened, and I now have a choice as to whether I have her in my life or not, and I make a choice to have her in my life, and I set boundaries with that. And when somebody has problems that make you see them as a completely bad person, and you hate them, and everything is so negative, you are reinforcing to them that they're those things. But you also need to do that a little bit, because they need to know that their behaviour isn't appropriate, and that they cannot be expected to be supported and loved in the same way if they are behaving a certain way. And if you have somebody like my aunt who was drinking, well, no, she didn't deserve my family's support, because she killed that. And she didn't deserve for us to be the first ones to pick up the phone to call her. She had to do that. She had to phone up and say, I want to phone up and say I've been sober for a year. You know, and I remember that phone call. I remember how amazing it felt. And she hasn't suddenly just gone back to this like, oh, you know, I've seen another side to her, but that doesn't make her a bad person. Okay, so that's my kind of feel on terms of how I have learnt to see people and how I've learnt to see layers in people, and I've learnt to see that a behaviour can be incredibly negative, and it needs for behaviours to change. You can't reinforce negative behaviours, because if you reinforce them, all you're doing is giving that person a reason for it to carry on, even if they don't do it like consciously. It's like me constantly doing what I was doing with my aunt. I was enabling her. I wasn't helping her. I was making it worse because I wasn't making her take responsibility for herself. And in stepping back, you do in some ways leave a person to it, but you need to be able to show that boundary. You can be there for somebody and love them without enabling their behaviour, and I think that that's really, really important. And it's really important to not feel guilty, and it's really important that if you do get mad at that person and you see them as this really bad person because of what they're doing, that you bring their humanity into it, that you show some compassion. And your compassion doesn't have to be about supporting them and enabling them. Your compassion needs to be about letting go of that hate. If you're feeling, incredibly hateful towards that person, incredibly resentful, about saying, I love them, I don't like them. And I think that that's quite an important distinction. I don't like them, I don't like what they're doing. I love the person they are, the true deep down in their heart, but I don't like what they're doing. And as long as I don't like what I'm doing, why should I have a friendship with that person? Why do I keep dropping everything for that person? And we sometimes have to let go of that sense of control, really, of that what's the worst thing that's going to happen, because ultimately there's no point in you destroying yourself trying to save somebody else. When it comes to the other end of it, when we idolise people, when we see somebody as flawless, we need to also negotiate that. No one is perfect, no one person has everything, is everything, and can be everything. People can be role models, people can be somebody to look up to, people can be inspiring. I'd like to think that I'm some of those things, but I'm not perfect. I am so far from perfect, it's unbelievable. But I do my best to be an example to other people, to be a role model. I do my best to be there for people. I do my best to deal with situations in the best way I can in that moment. And I can't make promises. I make mistakes. I say the wrong things. I can be impulsive. I can be all of those things. And that's what we've got to understand that other people are. So rather than holding that person either in high esteem or not, in high esteem, they're human. That person's human, whoever it is that you might kind of look up to. And like, I've done it with therapists, but with Jaya I did it, I was just like, whoa, she's like, everything, and then ended up disappointed. And that in itself was a lesson, and maybe we all need to go through that. Maybe we need to learn to have that kind of bump, because we are human, and all humans make mistakes, and all humans are human. And you can't have a situation where you can only see all the good or all the bad, and you can't expect that of somebody, and you can't put that pressure on somebody to be only amazing all the time, constantly just like inspiring and a role model and all the rest of it. But at the same time, you don't have to accept negative behaviour that is abusive towards you and is enabling them to continue with what they're doing. I'm going to have to go because I've literally got about like 10 seconds. I don't know if I made any sense whatsoever, but hopefully I did. And you can just tell me if I don't, and I won't be offended. And hopefully I'll see you next week. And we've got a really good road coming up, so yay. Okay, bye.